Welcome to the deep dive, where we try to cut through the noise and really get straight to the insights that matter. Yesterday, Major League Baseball, wow, it wasn't just a schedule of games. It felt more like, I don't know, a trilogy of drama, like a living, breathing anthology showing off baseball's amazing power to create these, epic stories, but also really personal ones, too. We saw pretty much everything. Masterful bullpen work, locking down these super tight leads, unstoppable lineups, just steamrolling opponents. So what we're diving into today are three really different kinds of games from just yesterday. A super tense one-run nail-biter, then a completely lopsided game showing off pure hitting power, and finally a thrilling back-and-forth slugfest that, well, kept everyone guessing right to the end.
Exactly. And our mission here for you listening is to get past just the box scores. We want to pull out the important bits, the knowledge, the insights from these really different stories. By looking at these contrasting games, we think you'll get a much richer feel for just how multifaceted baseball is. We'll touch on, strategic brilliance, raw power when an offense just clicks, and even the mental side, the psychology of competition. It's not just what happened, it's why it matters, how it all played out, and maybe most importantly, what lessons each game offers about the sport itself.
Okay, so let's kick things off with that first one. Definitely a taut, gripping contest. The Baltimore Orioles beating the San Diego Padres 4-3. This felt like a chess match right from the start, A game where every little detail, every decision mattered because the margin was just so incredibly thin. What really jumped out at me was the Orioles. Such a young team, so dynamic, but they played with this maturity, like way beyond their years. Their runs didn't really come from those big highlight reel homers. Instead, it was all about this really strategic, disciplined plate approach, working counts deep, drawing walks, stringing together hits right when they needed them. I remember one moment, middle innings, I think, where they showed real mastery of, small ball. They turned a few singles and attack fly into a huge run.
That's it exactly. And what's insightful isn't just small ball works. It's how that sustained discipline working counts, drawing walks, how that systematically just wears down the opposing pitcher. You make them throw more pitches each at bat, right? That drives up the pitch count, gets them out of the game earlier. It's like a war of attrition at the plate. And that small ball you mentioned, it's more than just singles. It's the strategy, the efficiency of moving runners, a good bunt, or like you said, that sacrifice fly, hitting it deep enough, knowing you're out, but letting the runner tag from third and score. It's about manufacturing runs when you're not hitting home runs. And it puts so much pressure on the defense to be perfect. Every out feels harder.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So it's a deliberate grinding strategy against the pitcher. But what about the Padres side of things? I mean, they fought hard. They definitely had flashes like that clutch hit late that brought them within one run. But in the end, it felt like they just couldn't get that one extra hit. Left a lot of guys on base. That frustration, you could almost feel it. It seems common in close losses, right?
Oh, absolutely. That frustration you mentioned, that's kind of the point of the Orioles strategy, isn't it? This game was just a clinic in situational baseball. Every hit, every walk, every play in the field felt magnified because the score was so close. And we really have to give huge credit to the Orioles bullpen here. They came into these high leverage situations, late innings, runners on, game on the line. And they just had ice in their veins. They consistently shut down the Padres' best hitters right when it mattered most, holding that tiny lead. It really shows that success isn't always about the flashy power plays. Sometimes it's those small, almost unglamorous plays adding up. So it makes you wonder, for you listening, what does this kind of precise, grinded-out execution, especially from a young team, tell us about building a winning team? Or about strategy in today's game? It's clearly about more than just talent.
That's a fantastic point, especially, given how young that Orioles team is. I think for us, the audience, what this game really highlights is the mental strength, the strategic precision you absolutely need to win those gritty games. It's not one big moment. It's collective, disciplined pressure, inning after inning. Okay, now let's completely switch gears from that tight chess match to what I'd call a demolition derby. The Tampa Bay Rays just dismantling the Seattle Mariners, 10-2. This is totally lopsided, a real statement game about offensive dominance. The Rays just showed pure, relentless power right from the get-go. Wasted no time, got on the board early, never looked back. They just attacked Seattle's pitching, punishing every mistake. Hard, and it wasn't just one or two guys. It felt like the entire lineup was locked in. Multiple guys with extra base hits, doubles, triples, homers, driving, and runs.
Right, and connecting this to the bigger picture, it wasn't just momentum, it was almost like a positive feedback loop of aggression. Once the Rays started hitting, especially those extra base hits clearing the bases, their pitchers could just attack. They had this huge cushion. So you have relentless offense plus confident, aggressive pitching. That combination creates this massive psychological and statistical edge. It forces the Mariners onto the back foot, makes every mistake seem bigger. Yeah, the sheer number of runs wasn't just impressive, it was crushing for the Mariners. Their pitchers couldn't find any rhythm, the defense seemed to buckle under the pressure, and then their bats just went cold. Couldn't string anything together against Rays pitchers who were just dealing, full of confidence with that big lead.
That's a really interesting way to put it, the positive feedback loop.
Yeah.
Makes me wonder, how much of that score was the Rays just playing lights out?
Yeah.
And how much was Seattle maybe just unable to punch back against that kind of pressure?
Well, it's usually a bit of both, right? But in blowouts like this, one team's overwhelming force really does seem to amplify any weakness in the other. It becomes, a simple, almost brutal display. One team's firepower just completely overwhelming the other's defense. It's definitely a humbling lesson for the losing side about how unforgiving baseball can be when your opponent is just firing on all cylinders. It makes you think, maybe in any competition, when does pure overwhelming force just beat out careful strategy? Sometimes maybe brute strength just wins.
Exactly. So for you listening, this dive into the Rays' demolition really shows the huge, sometimes overwhelming impact of momentum and just that raw, unbridled power that can take over a game when everything clicks. It's honestly kind of thrilling to watch, even if it's not your team. All right, finally, let's talk about the roller coaster. The Texas Rangers 7-5 win over the Arizona Diamondbacks. This was the definition of a back-and-forth fight, just woven with big hits, some great defensive plays, and these resilient comebacks. It really felt like a test of a competitive spirit for both sides. The Rangers actually started out strong, built up a nice lead, looked like maybe they'd cruise. But nope, the Diamondbacks, they have their own powerful offense, and they weren't going away quietly. They just kept chipping away at that lead. Every time the Rangers scored, felt like the D-backs had an answer, kept the pressure on, kept it close.
And what's fascinating here is how much this game gets into the psychological warfare of baseball. It was this beautiful mix of resilience, determination, a story of ebb and flow, right? Momentum shifts back and forth. But ultimately, it was about one team refusing to let that lead slip away. The real turning point seemed to be late innings. Rangers pushed across a couple of key runs, and these weren't cheap runs. They came from clutch hitting and high leverage spots, which, means hitting successfully right when the game's on the line, runners in scoring position, everything hanging in the balance. That's the kind of thing that really separates the good teams from the great ones, that ability to perform under intense mental pressure.
So it's not just getting a hit, it's getting the hit when it counts most.
Wow!
The pressure must be incredible. And even though Arizona kept battling back, they just couldn't quite, get over the hump in the end.
Precisely. The Diamondbacks' relentless fight kept the Rangers on their toes, absolutely tested their composure. But Texas's defense, their bullpen, they held firm when they absolutely had to, showed they could stay composed and execute when the pressure was highest. Ultimately, yeah, it was Texas's ability to keep their focus and execute in those clutch moments that made the difference. This game was just a fantastic testament to the spirit of both teams, and it really highlights how a team's ability to execute under that sustained, intense pressure can be the deciding factor. It makes you ask, doesn't it, for you listening, how much does mental toughness, that ability to focus and perform when everything's on the line, how much does that factor in beyond just the physical skill?
That's a huge point, yeah. For you, the listener, this game is really a vivid reminder about how critical mental resilience is. And executing perfectly when you're under that intense, sustained pressure. It's not always about who hits hardest, but maybe who handles the tension, the ups and downs, the expectations the best. So as we wrap up this deep dive, it feels pretty clear that yesterday's games were way more than just results on a scoreboard. It really was, like we said at the start, a living anthology of everything that makes baseball, well, arguably the greatest game. We saw that tactical genius, the art of the grind in the Orioles-Padres game, how that systematic pressure works. Then we saw the celebration of just raw power, that compounding aggression in the Rays-Mariners demolition. And finally, that symphony of resilience, determination, the ultimate mental test in the Rangers-Diamondbacks roller coaster. Each game a really distinct, powerful lesson.
Exactly. And if we pull back to the bigger picture, what these three very different stories show us is that this greatest game isn't just one thing. It's this whole spectrum, right? Strategic battles, incredible displays of power, deep tests of mental strength. So for you, maybe this deep dive race is an interesting question. Beyond just the score, what kind of story, what kind of narrative are you most drawn to in any competition? And what does that preference maybe tell you about what you value in success? Is it the meticulous planning, the grind? Is it the overwhelming force that just dominates? Or is it that sheer grit, the mental resilience of a comeback, or holding a lead under fire? Thinking about that helps you appreciate not just the win or loss, but all those intricate layers, the human drama that make these narratives so captivating. In baseball, sure, but really in any competitive field.